Hello everyone. So let's start with the first question, very important and frequently asked in the recent years, to identify the marked rib, whether it is anterior or posterior rib, and whether it is the fifth rib or is it the sixth rib, right? So how do you do the rib counting is start with the first rib. This rib, which is more broad that you see there, that is the first rib. This is the anterior. First, understand that what is anterior and posterior end of the rib. So when you look at the rib, posteriorly connected to the vertebra, coming like this horizontal, and then anteriorly it becomes oblique, right? So these part of the ribs that you are seeing, which are horizontal, these are the posterior parts, and these ones which are more oblique, these are the anterior parts, right? You can see that the anterior ends of the ribs are not well visualized and they do not reach the midline because they have the costal cartilage here, right? We cannot see cartilage on x-ray. So first of all, look at the arrow. Where is that the arrow pointing? The arrow is pointing here. So is it anterior or is it posterior? What do you think? Is it the anterior part of the rib or is it the posterior part of the rib? So this part of the rib that you see, which is horizontal, so this is going to be the posterior. So first of all, you rule out the options which says anterior, which says anterior, so that is out. So you know this is posterior. Now coming to whether it is fifth or whether it is sixth. So again, have a look at this one here, whether it is fifth or is it sixth. So start counting from the first rib, the broad rib, the anterior end. This is first, right? And now this is going to be second. Now this is where majority of the students tend to make the mistake. Please understand that the first and the second rib, their posterior ends, they tend to overlap, right? So do not make a mistake in counting there, right? So you have the first and the second here. Then what do you have is third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Okay, below that, this one is the third. Then you have this which is fourth, this is fifth, and this is sixth. So what is the answer going to be? The answer is going to be this is sixth posterior rib. Is it clear with everyone? Commonly done mistake. Remember that the first and the second rib, the posterior parts, they tend to overlap. Okay, do not do a mistake there in counting. Okay, going on to the next question. See, when you have long stem clinical questions like this, it is best to start reading from the last line to understand what is the gist of the question. So, which of the following structures is most likely obstructed, leading to the clinical presentation observed in this patient? So, what is a clinical presentation that is given here? Read in between the lines. There is an obstruction in the venous return from the head, neck, and upper limbs. So, the venous return from the upper part of the body. So, basically, what are you thinking about? The question is talking about SVC obstruction. And when you have a look at the image here, the mediastinal vessels that you have, we have discussed in our videos. This is the right side, this is the left side. Do not make a mistake there as well. Your left is the patient's right. And from right to left, the structures are the SAP. Remember, the SAP comes from right to left. So this one, which is the rightmost, this is superior vena cava. Then AA is the ascending aorta. And then you have the P, which is the pulmonary artery. So which is the superior vena cava marked here? This B is what is the SVC. So the answer is going to be B. Is this clear with everyone? Okay, that's great. Going to next one. Spotter image. Even without reading the question, you can answer this. See, sometimes the image itself speaks for itself like a spotter image, or sometimes the image might be difficult in the exam. In that case, your clinical history, clinical scenario is what helps you answer that question. Okay, now here this is a spotter image that you are seeing. Why am I calling it a spotter image? Look at this. There is this curve that you are seeing, the LSS curve, the blunting of the costophrenic angle, right? So what is this? This is going to be pleural effusion. Remember pleural effusion, the Ellis curve which is present. How do you differentiate pleural effusion from hydropneumothorax? Hydro, water, pneumo, air. So air fluid present. When air and fluid are present together, the air fluid level is a horizontal level, right? On the other hand, pleural effusion always is a curve, and pneumothorax is air. It is going to be black. It is not going to be white pathology like this. So this is a spotter image. So what is the diagnosis? This is pleural effusion. Very correct, Kashyap. Absolutely right. Going to next one. What do you see here? Which of the following radiological signs is most characteristic of the condition seen in this image? So first you have to identify the condition and then you have to talk about the sign which is seen there. So 35-year-old woman, chronic productive cough, recurrent foul swelling sputum, everything hemoptysis is given. And if you look at the image, what are you having? What are you seeing in the image? Look at this black. What are these black? Black is air containing bronchi. The bronchi are prominent. The bronchi are dilated. So what is the diagnosis here? The diagnosis here is bronchiectasis. Okay, the diagnosis here is bronchiectasis. So what sign out of the 4 options do you see in bronchiectasis? Tram track sign, the dilated bronchi which do not taper, so they remain parallel throughout. So that is the parallel bronchi, tram track sign, that is going to be bronchiectasis. What is the other sign? Along with the bronchus goes the vessel. So when you take a cross section, you see a dilated bronchus, and adjacent to that you see a small vessel. So what is the other sign that you see? Signet ring sign. The other sign is signet ring sign, right? And what is the best investigation for bronchiectasis? Remember HRCT chest, because it helps you see those small peripheral bronchi also very well. Okay, so is this clear with everyone? It's going to be tram track sign. Tree in bud appearance. Tree in bud is seen in TB, the active endobronchial spreading TB. Air bronchogram is seen in the condition where the lung is opacified, like you have consolidation, any cause of consolidation. It is seen there. Okay, going on to next one. Identify the location of the foreign body. So what options do I rule out looking at the foreign body here? The foreign body here is like a slit. It is not round. If it would have been round in this frontal view, then it would have been esophagus. That is how you remember. Remember esophagus O, the foreign body is circular. This is not circular. So this is not in the esophagus. Is it in the larynx or is it in the trachea? Look at the level. It is, if you zoom, I zoom in the image here. Have a look here. This is the trachea dividing into the bronchi. So this is definitely like in the trachea. This is very much lower level. The larynx is at the above level, higher level. It is not like in the mid thorax. So this is not in the larynx. This is going to be in the trachea. Remember the foreign body in trachea. When I write T, remember it like this. The foreign body in trachea is what is slit like the foreign body in the trachea on the AP view. Okay, going to next one, match the following with the sign. See, in your INICT exam, when you have matched the following questions, they are on the easier side. Why? Because out of all the 4 or 5 options that are given, if you know like 1, 2, you are able to answer it, right? So you definitely know, for example, let's say epiglottitis is something that everybody reads about. The epiglottis in epiglottitis is thick, edematous, and shows what sign? The thumb sign. So you definitely know that acute epiglottitis is thumb sign. So D is 5. So D is 5. You can see only in option B, no other options. So straight ahead, you can go ahead and mark the answer as B. क्योंकि और कोई option में D5 है ही नहीं. So that's your quick trick for solving the match the following questions. You don't have to look at all the options. Okay, so look at the one that you already know. Is this clear with everyone? So let's have a look at all the options. Klebsiella pneumonia. Klebsiella has very mucoid and viscous sputum. That mucoid viscous sputum basically presses on the fissure. And what does it cause because of the weight? The bulging down of the fissure. So what do you see with Klebsiella pneumonia? This bulging fissure sign. So A is 3, right? So if this is the right lung, the horizontal fissure, in Klebsiella, the fissure goes down. It bulges down like this. The bulging fissure sign is what you have. Aspergilloma. Asked in one of the recent FMG exams, aspergilloma is a fungal ball which comes and sits in a pre-existing cavity, like the question says there is history of a TB patient. The cavity is already there. The fungal ball comes and sits inside that cavity. So the remaining air that you have in that cavity, it appears like a crescent. So that is the air crescent sign. Okay, what is that sign? That is the air crescent sign. So this is going to be 4. Okay. Staphylococcal pneumonia, right? It is like a lobar pneumonia, lobar consolidation. Through that lobar consolidation, you see the black bronchi going, air bronchogram, right? So that is going to be 2. Staphylococcal pneumonia, streptococcal pneumonia, basically any consolidation. PCP pneumonia, which is opportunistic infection in HIV positive patients, you have those ground glass opacities and reticular shadows in the perihilar region. So remaining option there is going to be 1 for PCP pneumonia. Is this clear with everyone? Very good, Kashyap. The air crescent sign is also called the Monod sign. Remember it as like monod, moon के जैसा crescent like the moon, monod sign. ठीक है? Clear with everyone? Give me a quick thumbs up, guys. If you have any query anywhere, please put it down in the live chat. You know, because some of the things I might assume that ये तो आपको पता होगा, right? But if it is something that you have not read or something that you have not understood, please ask in the live chat then and there. Okay? Let's go on to the next one. What is the most likely diagnosis, which is given here? Look at the image. Your rhinitis, sinusitis, polyps. What are these? This is the maxillary sinus. The maxillary sinus, look at the maxillary sinus. Is it normal? No. How is the normal sinus? The normal sinus should be jet black, containing air. But you are seeing something in the sinus which is gray. Plus there is this gray fluid is containing the air bubbles also. So when you see the gray fluid, the mucus with the air bubbles, that is suggestive of acute sinusitis. The sinus is not containing only air, but there is this mucus as well, the fluid as well. So this is going to be sinusitis. And what sinusitis? Acute sinusitis, because there is presence of air bubbles also. Is this clear with everyone? What will you see in chronic sinusitis? Any chronic inflammatory condition, remember there's going to be the surrounding bone which will become thick and sclerosed. So there is going to be sclerosis with chronic sinusitis. The air bubbles will not be present. Okay, so this is sinusitis. Okay, next one. Which of the following combinations of diagnosis and investigation of choice is most appropriate? Look at the arrow. What is it pointing to? So this is pointing to the sigmoid sinus. Okay. Now remember that in MRI, any vessel with the flowing blood, it gives a flow void. Normal flowing blood gives a flow void. That means the flowing blood does not give any signal. It should appear black. If you are seeing a vessel which is appearing white on MRI, non-contrast MRI, that means there is a thrombus inside it, stagnant blood thrombus, which is giving the signal. So look at this sigmoid sinus here. It is appearing white. That means it is thrombosed. That is why it is giving the signal. If it was a normal flowing blood, it will give the flow void. Okay. So this is sigmoid sinus thrombosis, sigmoid sinus thrombosis. This is not the location of the internal carotid artery. Okay, this is not the location of internal carotid artery. And what investigation do you prefer for this venous sinus thrombosis? MR venogram. Any vascular pathology, you will never do a non-contrast CT. Vascular pathologies, you have to make the vessels look white. So in that case, you will do contrast CT, not a non-contrast CT. Or you can do for these venous sinuses, you can do MR venogram. Okay. Ayyappan, you have the query in this question or the last question? D is for the previous question or this question? So for acute hemorrhage, for calcifications, we do non-contrast CT. This question, yes, this is going to be the answer here. MR venogram. Going to next one. Identify the investigation and the corresponding diagnosis. So what investigation is this? Whenever you see a vessel which is black vessel wala angiography is always a DSA, digital subtraction angiogram. Okay, it is not MR angiogram, so it is either B or C. Start ruling out the options. That's the first trick that you should be using in MCQs. Now in DSA, is it glomus jugular or is it carotid body tumor? We are in the area of the neck. If you see, these are the cervical vertebrae in the background. This is common carotid dividing into the two, external and internal. So this is carotid body tumor in the center, which is showing that vessels supplying the carotid body tumor. What sign do you get in carotid body tumor? The Liar's sign, as in recent NEET PG exam. The carotid body tumor sitting at the bifurcation causes a widening of the angle, right? So the ICA and the ECA get separated. That is called the Liar's sign. This is carotid body tumor. Just looking at the location, you know that this is not glomus jugular. Glomus jugular upar aayega, right? This is going to be carotid body tumor. In DSA, background is visible. Yes, Lakshay, what happens is you get number of images. So you do get an image where the background is seen, and you can get the final image where that background mask is removed. Okay, so you can get either of that. Okay, like you can see the background here, like this is ऐसा आपका mandible वाला part, ये cervical spine वाला part है, ये background भी दिख रहा है. With background भी हो सकता है, without background भी हो सकता है. Okay, going to next one. Which of the following statements about imaging modalities of gallbladder is true? CT IVC is commonly used to diagnose jaundiced patients. IVC is basically intravenous cholangiogram, right? So you give a substance which is given intravenous, it is taken up by the liver, then from the liver it goes into the biliary tract, including the gallbladder, right? Jaundice patients anyways have liver failure, so that will not be able to take up that substance. So we definitely do not use it in jaundice patients. And of course, now this CT-IVC has been replaced by MRCP is what you prefer there, right? So this is definitely not correct. ERCP has a low complication rate and is only diagnostic. This is also incorrect because you know that ERCP is therapeutic also, right? When you see a stone, you can remove it from the CBD, and it does have a lot of complications because it is invasive procedure, right? MRCP is non-invasive, ERCP is invasive. So tell me that ERCP, what is the most common complication with ERCP? Pancreatitis. ERCP के बाद pancreatitis common है. USD is less accurate than CT for diagnosing acute biliary disease. When I say acute biliary disease, it also includes acute cholecystitis. In that, USD is rather better than CT, right? Because the gallstones which are not calcified are better seen on ultrasound. Okay, the fluid surrounding gallbladder, all that is well seen on ultrasound. So this is also incorrect. So remaining has to be correct, that T-tube cholangiogram assesses stone clearance post CBD exploration. That is correct. So if this is the CBD, you have a T-tube which goes into the CBD, right? So the T-tube cholangiogram is done 7 to 10 days after the surgery. We put the contrast through this T-tube, and if there is any stone, you will see the filling defect in the CBD. Okay, so it helps in assessing the stone clearance post CBD exploration, right? So the T-tube is put into the CBD post surgery, basically for draining the CBD, and then for also diagnosing any residual stones, any residual stricture in the CBD. Okay, next one. Match the following with their respective radiological images. First, tell me, Caroli's disease. What do you know about Caroli's disease? We have learned in the videos. Type 5 choledochal cyst, C for C. It has central dot sign. Caroli's C, central dot sign. So in which of these images you have central dot sign? Image C. Look at this image. Like there's a cystic lesion with the central dot. Cystic lesion with the central dot. So first is going to be C, or C is going to be 1. C is 1 in these two options. So rest of the two options are out. Okay. Now let's have a look at the next one. HCC. What do you know about HCC? Hepatocellular carcinoma is supplied by hepatic artery rather than the portal vein. So when you give contrast for liver lesions, you do triple phase contrast CT. So the HCC, which is supplied by the hepatic artery, it shows early arterial enhancement. The rest of the liver has not even enhanced, but it enhances fast. जितना जल्दी वो enhance होता है, उतना जल्दी the contrast goes out also. There is early washout also. So when the rest of the liver enhances, this becomes dark. So this is what you see in the image D. These are early arterial enhancing lesions that you are seeing, and they are dark as compared to the rest of the liver. That means they are showing washout. So HCC D is going to be second. Okay, D2, that is what is given in the option B and C as well. Coming to hepatic cyst and hepatic hemangioma. Hemangioma classically shows in the early arterial phase peripheral nodular enhancement, and in the delayed images the enhancement fills in, right? There is centripetal filling. So that is what you are seeing in the image B. This is the nodular white enhancement, and you can see that this enhancement is filling in the lesion, right? So there is centripetal filling. So hepatic hemangioma 4 is going to be B. B is going to be 4. So the correct answer is going to be your option B. And hepatic cyst, look at this image. Cyst matlab fluid containing pathology, fluid containing lesion. Fluid on ultrasound. How is fluid on ultrasound? Black. Okay. So jet black colored lesion in the liver, which has this posterior white area. Posterior acoustic enhancement is what you see with cystic lesions. So jet black is the fluid on ultrasound. So this is going to be hepatic cyst. Okay, this is going to be hepatic cyst. All right, going on to the next one. Which of the following findings would most likely suggest chronic cholecystitis rather than acute cholecystitis? Right, the last line is enough for me to understand that what is the question asking. So कौन सा finding बताएगा कि chronic cholecystitis है? Positive Murphy sign, acute pain, that tenderness that is present in acute cholecystitis, absence of pericholecystic fluid. Yes, because remember that acute inflammatory conditions, there is fluid which comes in. In chronic inflammation, there is fibrosis, there is no fluid. Okay, so absence of pericholecystic fluid. High density bile on CT. Okay, that can be there in acute condition also. It's basically because of the stasis of the bile. The density is increasing, right? So it could be in acute as well. Distended gallbladder. Remember, any acute inflammation, the organ is edematous and bulky. So similarly, in acute cholecystitis, the gallbladder is over-distended. In chronic cholecystitis, the gallbladder is contracted. There is fibrosis, there is shrinkage. Same thing happens in pyelonephritis. Acute pyelonephritis, enlarged kidney. Chronic pyelonephritis, shrunken kidney. Acute pancreatitis, bulky pancreas. Chronic pancreatitis, atrophic pancreas, right? So remember that the distended one is going to be acute and not chronic. So absence of pericholecystic fluid is chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation will have fluid. Okay, going on to next one. The next image. Which of the following, read the question carefully, is not the most likely diagnosis? Look at the kidneys here. The kidneys are fused here at the lower pole also, at the upper pole also. It is not just that the kidneys are like U-shaped like this. They are not fused only at one pole, but they are fused at both the poles. Okay, agreed. The kidneys are fused at both the poles, while horseshoe kidney is something which is at one pole. So that is why which is not the diagnosis? It is horseshoe kidney. The rest of the three options, pancake kidney, discoid kidney, lump kidney, fused pelvic kidney, these are the terms for the kidneys which are fused at both the poles. So basically B, C and D mean the same. Horseshoe kidney is something which is fused only at one pole. Okay. Horseshoe kidney is generally located inferior as compared to the normal location of the kidney. Why? Because what prevents the ascent of the horseshoe kidney? Frequently asked question, which vessel prevents the ascent of the horseshoe kidney? Remember, it is inferior mesenteric artery. Okay, it is inferior mesenteric artery. Very good, Kashyap. Correct. Okay. समझ में आया? Pancake kidney has been asked in one of the previous FMG exams as well. Okay, they are the kidney which is fused at both the end. Going to next one, this is a sort of a bit tricky question, right? So you have a patient where there is vesico-ureteric reflux, okay, on the VCUG. Question is, what is the most appropriate imaging study to evaluate the severity of the obstruction? The patient is of VUR, but the question is asking about the obstruction in the urinary tract. So for that, the best is diuretic renography, which is a nuclear scan. So you know what is the best nuclear scan for the overall renal function? The MAG3, right? So after giving this MAG3, we give diuretic to the patient. This diuretic basically will force the excretion. So if after diuretic, the clearance is becoming faster, the clearance is increasing, that means it is a non-obstructive pathology. See, many times what happens is, on ultrasound, you are seeing hydronephrosis. Now, this hydronephrosis could be because of a true obstruction, or it could be just because, let's say, the tone of the ureter is not good. There is no mechanical obstruction, but the ureter tone is not good. So if something is coming in and pushing the excretion like a diuretic, then the clearance increases. If there was a true mechanical obstruction, even the diuretic will not increase the excretion, right? So when you want to differentiate whether it's a true obstruction or it is a non-obstructive dilatation, then you take help of this diuretic renography. So when it is about obstruction, then you will do a, see, repeat VCUG, how will it help me? The role of VCUG in VUR is to tell you whether there is a reflux or no reflux. So understand that in a patient of vesico-ureteric reflux, If you want to make a diagnosis, you want to prove that there is reflux, then what investigation? Then VCUG, that is MCU. Micturating cystourethrogram. When the patient micturates, then you would see the reflux happening. But if the question is, let's say you want to see the scar in the kidney, how much scarring has occurred in the kidney because of the reflux, then what scan will you do for that? I'm not talking about obstruction. I'm asking the scarring in the kidney because of the reflux. Then what nuclear scan do we do? Very good. Correct, Kashyap. It is DMSA scan. Okay. So for diagnosing, correct. So for diagnosing the reflux, it is going to be MCU. For scarring, it is going to be DMSA. For obstructive versus non-obstructive dilatation, it is going to be diuretic renography. Okay. Next question. Favorite IVP image comes in your exam every now and then. The spotter image, right? What sign are you seeing here? The ureter coming and it is dilated like the cobra head. So what is that? This is cobra head appearance, which is seen with ureterocele. The ureter ka dilatation at the insertion, right? There is cystic dilatation in the lower ureter. So cobra head, adder head appearance. This is going to be ureterocele. Easy, right? Next one. What type of injuries most likely? Look at the options. Is it urethra rupture? Is it bladder rupture? First of all, you are not seeing the urethra here. This is a CT scan with the white bones, the pelvic area CT scan. There is this Foley's bulb that you are seeing there. So this is the bladder ka part. So definitely this is not urethra rupture that we are talking about. It is bladder rupture. Now look at the bladder rupture. Look at the contrast accumulating. The contrast is accumulating surrounding the bladder in a very localized area. Like what is this appearance called as? Like the molar tooth appearance. Okay, it is just accumulating around the bladder in the space of Retzius like a molar tooth. That is extraperitoneal, localized accumulation. If it would have been intraperitoneal rupture, so peritoneal cavity में जा रहा है, bowel loops के बीच में दिखेगा contrast, right? So that is what you would see in intraperitoneal. In extraperitoneal, it is localized around the bladder like the molar tooth. Okay, is this clear with everyone? Which bladder rupture is more common? The extraperitoneal. Intraperitoneal occurs when the bladder is distended and on the dome of the bladder there is injury. Then there is that intraperitoneal rupture which occurs. Okay, this is localized collection, molar tooth sign. This is going to be extraperitoneal bladder rupture. For bladder injury, CT cystogram is what is a good investigation for bladder rupture. Next one, a bit of a confusing question. I would not say like, this is a straightforward question, right? 2-year-old child, abdominal distension, palpable mass. What is the diagnosis? It's not RCC because RCC इतने 2 साल के बच्चे में नहीं होता है. हिपैटोब्लास्टोमा लिवर का है तो वो लेफ्ट साइड में नहीं आएगा, राइट साइड में आएगा. तो एटलीस्ट वी हैव रूल्ड दिस आउट. नाउ वेदर दिस इज विल्स or this is neuroblastoma. Yes. See, at least for your exam, what I would say is, see, this question would have been framed in a better manner. If it was neuroblastoma, calcification is seen like in around 90% of neuroblastomas. Agar calcification hota, then we would have definitely, gone for neuroblastoma. Now, this lesion, midline को cross कर रहा है नहीं कर रहा है कि सिर्फ midline में है. Even this is not definitely very much convincing here. Second, look at the aorta, right? How the aorta has come in the midline. Aorta should have been to the left of the vertebra. The aorta is displaced. So displacement of the vessel, absence of the calcification, right? Features more in favor of Wilms tumor rather than neuroblastoma. Now tell me that out of Wilms and neuroblastoma, in which one do you see the claw sign? And what is that claw sign? So if this is the kidney, the Wilms tumor arises from the kidney. So you would see like the kidney making a claw around that tumor. So that tells you that this is the organ of origin. If you look at this image, this is the right kidney. You are not seeing the left kidney here. Very, very difficult to appreciate the claw sign here. But left kidney is like entirely just, there might be a small rim which is present. The Wilms tumor itself is so big. Okay. So remember that this will go, if I have to go for the answer, I'll go for Wilms tumor here. Calcification hota, so definitely I would have gone for neuroblastoma. Neuroblastoma is what crosses the midline. Okay, that is what crosses the midline. Wilms tumor displaces the surrounding structures. Neuroblastoma encases the surrounding structures like the vessels. It will encase the aorta and the IVC. Okay. Clear with everyone? Where do you have metastasis common with Wilms and neuroblastoma? Wilms में lung metastasis common होता है, neuroblastoma में bone metastasis, skull metastasis, right? Opsoclonus, myoclonus is seen with neuroblastoma. Okay, going on to the next one, radiological finding with their associated condition. Again, match the following. So which one is the easiest out of all of these four? For me, I would say the easiest here is look at this vertebra here. In this vertebra, this dot appearance, which is called the polka dot appearance. This is vertebral hemangioma. Okay, remember it as Hema Malini. Wearing polka dot shirt, wearing corduroy pants is going to jail. So the jail bar appearance. So vertebral hemangioma has this prominent trabeculations in the bone. So that appears like the jail bar or the corduroy appearance. You take a cross section, the lines appear as the dots. So that is polka dot appearance. Okay. So 3 is going to be B. Okay. 3 is B. Where do you have 3B? Only in one option. So your answer becomes option A directly. Match the following are the fastest. Okay. So this is your answer here. Let's have a look at the other options. Look at this one. Okay, guys. First of all, tell me this is CT or this is MRI? This is not a MRI. Look at the bone cortex. The bone cortex is white. This is going to be CT. Right? I know that many students make a mistake here looking at the bone which is black. Do not look at the bone ka inside wala part. Look at the bone cortex. Okay, Ayappan? I hope you'll not make this mistake in the exam. Look at the bone cortex. Okay, so this is CT. And look at this vertebra which is appearing very white like ivory. So what is this vertebra here? This is ivory vertebra. Ivory vertebra is seen in Paget's disease. So 4 is A. Okay. Look at this one. What are you seeing here? This is the intervertebral disc in between the two vertebra. Intervertebral disc which is calcified. Okay. So where do you have calcified intervertebral disc? Ankylosing spondylitis. It can involve the intervertebral disc. Dish does not involve intervertebral disc. Okay, so 2 is going to be D. And look at this image here. Look at the metacarpals. You have the bone within bone appearance, the bone within bone appearance. So this appearance here is bone within bone appearance, which is seen in osteopetrosis, not porosis. So 1 is going to be C. Okay, bone within bone appearance, osteopetrosis, which is a problem with the osteoclast functioning. Okay, so the old bone stays there. So there is bone within bone appearance. Next one. Right, look at this image, the clinical image, the dental mottling that you are seeing. From that itself, you can make a diagnosis that this is fluorosis. Okay, there is increased bone density, there is calcification of ligaments already mentioned. So all of this is fluorosis. Remember, fluorosis causes diffuse osteosclerosis. It causes dense bones. That is osteosclerosis. Okay, osteosclerosis. Look at the pelvis, how the bones are appearing very dense. Look at the arrow pointing to this area. That is the ligament which is there. Right, the ligament which is getting ossified, which is getting white. Okay, the sacrotuberous ligament, the sacrospinous ligament, they get ossified. So this is going to be your fluorosis. The interosseous membrane can get ossified. The ligaments, the tendons, the interosseous membrane, there is ossification which occurs. Okay, so this is fluorosis. Going to next one. Okay, so this was that question you were talking about. Achondroplasia is this trident hand. Okay, so the starfish hand, the trident hand, achondroplasia. Let's have a look at the first image here. What are you seeing? Look at the phalanx which is overgrowing, hanging like a spade phalanx. Where do you have the spade phalanx? The spade phalanx is seen in acromegaly. Okay, 1 is C, 2 is A. So 1 is C, 2 is A, only in option D. So that becomes your answer. Okay, let's have a look at the other ones. एक्रोमेगैली हो गया, एकॉन्ड्रोप्लेजिया हो गया. ट्यूबरकुलोसिस क्या होता है हैंड में? Spina ventosa. Okay, the TB dactylitis, that is what is spina ventosa. So look at this fourth image here. There is this soft tissue swelling that you can see. There is the bone which is affected, the surrounding sclerosis which is there. This is spina ventosa, TB dactylitis. Crest syndrome, calcinosis cutis. Okay, so you are expecting calcification in the soft tissue that is there. So that is what you are seeing here, the calcification in the soft tissues. So this is Crest syndrome, has been asked previously. Okay, and psoriatic arthritis, P for P, pencil and cup appearance, arthritis mutilans affecting a lot of joints. So look at this one. What are you seeing here? All the joints can be affected. Okay, you can have the pencil and cup appearance. There's a lot of dislocations happening. All the joints can be involved. The remaining answer here is psoriatic arthritis. So these are the smart tricks, whenever you are solving radiology questions in your exam, be smart, think logically. You don't have to be like, do everything in radiology. Understand the basic concepts, apply them, understand the black and white, and you shall be able to solve the questions. Clear with everyone? Okay, going to next one, the skull findings. सिकल सेल, मल्टीपल माइलोमाइल्सिया, जो भी स्कल अपीयरेंसेस दिए हैं, इसमें से सबसे इजीएस्ट जो हम बहुत बार पढ़ते हैं, एग्जाम में आया हुआ है, इज दिस अपीयरेंस. व्हाट इज दिस अपीयरेंस? Hair on end appearance or crooked appearance, which is seen in hemolytic anemia. Remember HE, hair on end is HE, hemolytic anemia, like sickle cell anemia. So 5 is C. Okay, 5 is C, is only in this option, not in these options. So my answer becomes A, right? Don't waste a lot of time in match the following questions. So ये हो गया आपका sickle cell. बाकी options देखते हैं क्या क्या दिख रहे हैं. Look at the image 4. There's a lytic lesion in the skull, which has very irregular borders, lobed border. Okay, this is going to be LCH. Okay, 4 is E. Then you have this one where the skull cortex that is thickened, plus there are these blastic lesions also giving that cotton wool appearance of the skull. This is seen in Paget's disease. Okay, that is seen in Paget's disease. Look at these multiple well-defined lytic lesions in the skull, like punched out lesions, multiple myeloma. Okay, and what do you see here? The the hyperparathyroidism, which causes subperiosteal resorption. So few areas are going to be black, few areas are going to be white. So salt and pepper. So remember, for scoliosis, COCO, it is Cobb's angle. Do not get confused with the Codman's. Codman's angle, Codman triangle is in osteomyelitis or osteosarcoma and Ewing's, aggressive bone lesions. Okay, clear with everyone? Next one. Straightforward image, spotter image. You can see this sunburst pattern of periosteal reaction. The sunburst periosteal reaction, 17-year-old में ये common होता है, bone lesion. That is going to be osteosarcoma. Remember S for S. Osteosarcoma is what has sunburst periosteal reaction. Okay, clear? Next, which of the following is incorrect statement about this scan? See, a trick here. When you have, you are not able to identify, I don't know what scan is it. Take the help of the options. That helps you answer the question. Uses FDG. So maybe that clicks, that is probably this is PET that they are talking about. Doesn't show metabolic changes. Uses a ring of multiple detectors. Very expensive. So from these options, you get a hint that they are talking about PET scan. Okay, so this is PET scan. Uses FDG. Uses a ring of multiple detectors. That is what you have in PET. PET scan looks like a CT scan. Yes, it is expensive. It doesn't show metabolic changes is what is incorrect. PET, because it is using deoxyglucose. So that is what it is showing, the metabolism. PET is commonly used for cancer. The cancer cells take up more glucose. That is called as what effect? Warburg effect. So which modality is dependent on Warburg effect? The PET scan. What is the radioisotope used in PET scan? Radioisotope is F18. Why F18? Why not technetium that you use in scintigraphy? Why do you want to use F18 only in PET scan? Why is F18 used in PET scan? Yes, why not technetium? because PET is positron emission tomography and F18 is what is a positron emitter. Technetium-99 is not positron emitter. It is a gamma emitter. Okay, you want positron emitter. Okay, so that is why we use F18. What is the half-life of F18? 110 seconds, minutes, hours or days. 110 minutes, approximately 2 hours. Good enough to complete the scan and not long enough the patient will keep emitting the radiation. So even that has been asked. The half-life is 110 minutes. Correct. Next one, which of the following is not consistent with the image shown? So this image which you are seeing, यहाँ पे आपको दिख रहा है, ये liver है, gallbladder है, bile duct है. This is the nuclear scan for the biliary tract, that is the HIDA scan. Is there cystic duct obstruction? No, right? There is no cystic duct obstruction. If there was that obstruction, you will have not seen the gallbladder as well. So this is which of the following is not consistent? Cystic duct obstruction to nahi hai. Prompt excretion into the bile ducts. The tracer activity was seen in the gallbladder. And radioisotope used is technetium, is the most common radioisotope. You can see the activity in the gallbladder. There is excretion into the bile duct. So there is no cystic duct obstruction here. Okay, there is no cystic duct is what you can see here. Cystic duct obstruction is not there. So that is not consistent. Next one, again a nuclear scan, the thyroid scan which you are seeing here. So what is incorrect for this scan? Iodine 123 is most commonly used. That is the ideal one for the thyroid scan. Why is that the ideal one for thyroid scan? Because again, the half-life is good enough to complete the scan and not long enough that the patient will keep emitting radiation. 123 ka first or last number le lo. 13 hours is what is the half-life. So half-life of most common tracer, these two are making sense. There is an increased uptake of tracer in one area. Increased uptake of tracer in nuclear scan is given by the black areas, the hot spots. You can see this area also and this area also. So it's not just one area. So this is wrong. Technetium-99, System-EB can also be used. Remember, System-EB is, we read about parathyroid ke liye use karte hain, but at the same time, it can be used for thyroid also. Thyroid also shows uptake. So yes, you can use System-EB for thyroid also. So what is incorrect here is there is increased uptake in not just one area, but there are two areas. Okay, clear with everyone? Next one. What is the most likely diagnosis? What uterine anomaly, septate, arcuate, bicornuate or unicornuate? Rule out the options. Definitely it is not unicornuate क्योंकि आपको यहाँ पे दो horns दिख रहे हैं. It is not arcuate because in arcuate the only problem is a slight fundal indentation and the endometrium, the horns are only one. So even this is out. So whether it is septate or it is bicornuate. Remember for septate, S and S, it has a small angle of separation between the horns and it has a smooth outer surface. Okay. So look at this one. The angle of separation is small, acute angle. And look at the outer surface that you are seeing here. It is a smooth outer surface. So this is septate. If it would have been bicornuate, it would have been bifid endometrium and bifid outer surface as well. It is bifid completely. Okay, inner, outer, both. So this is going to be septate. Is this clear? It's not bicornuate. Okay. What is the gold standard investigation for uterine anomalies? Laparoscopy plus hysteroscopy both. So as to look at the outer surface and the inner surface as well. Okay, so laparoscopy plus hysteroscopy. Next one, what phase of menstrual cycle is this patient in? How do you identify? Look at this endometrium. This endometrium you can see is appearing like three lines. Trilaminar appearance of the endometrium. This is most consistent like with the ovulatory phase. Ovulatory phase is not given here. So you will go with late proliferative phase. Okay. Menstrual phase, endometrium is very, very thin. Endometrium shedding hota hai, so endometrium very thin. Early proliferative, endometrium is growing more. And then in secretory, it is very thick, echogenic endometrium, right? Uniformly thick and echogenic. So if you see this trilaminar appearance, this is ovulatory, this is late proliferative. Okay. Next one. What is the most significant ultrasound finding in this case? Is this T sign, lambda, snowstorm, or pseudogestational? Definitely snowstorm to nahi hai. That comes in molar pregnancy. Pseudogestational comes in ectopic pregnancy. What are you seeing here is twin pregnancies. And what is the sign? Look at the separation happening. The membrane is thick and it is dividing lambda. Okay, so this is the lambda sign that you are seeing here. When it is lambda sign, it is what kind of twin pregnancy? Remember the mnemonic LADDU. Lambda LADD. It is DCDA. Dichorionic diamniotic pregnancy. T sign T. The most famous T. Chai wala in our country. Modi ji. Remember T is Modi. Monochorionic diamniotic is T sign. Dichorionic diamniotic is lambda sign, right? So this is lambda sign. Next one, which of the following is most likely finding on ultrasound seen in this patient that helps differentiate it from PCOS? So 30-year-old woman, ovarian hyperstimulation is what she's undergoing. So the question is, what finding on ultrasound will help you differentiate it from PCOS? So echogenic stroma. The stroma has become echogenic in PCOS because of androgens, not in OHSS. Ovarian volume more than 10 cc can be seen in both. The bulky ovaries can be seen in both. Cyst measuring 2 to 9 mm again is PCOS, small follicles. OHSS has big follicles. So presence of ascites, presence of free fluid is what tells you that this is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, has the presence of free fluid. Is this clear with everyone? In PCOS, you have the small, tiny follicles arranged in the periphery. Okay. So that is the necklace sign, the string of pearls sign that you see in PCOS. In OHSS, there are big follicles in the entire ovary. The stroma does not increase. Okay. Next one, match the following. Again, have a look at the options, the various calcifications in mammography. Fibroadenoma, we all know, is popcorn calcification. So A is 4. A is 4 is only in this option and no other option. So your answer becomes A. Match the following easy questions. Okay, so popcorn calcification, fibroadenoma. Fat necrosis, remember, shows peripheral calcification like the eggshell. Okay, so eggshell calcification. Ductectasia, the dilated duct, gives that broken needle calcification, broken needle appearance. And fibrocystic disease, the fibrocystic disease has this teacup calcification. Okay, teacup calcification. So remember, fibrocystic, C for C. The teacup calcification is what you have in fibrocystic disease. Okay. Popcorn calcification, very important, remember, is fibroadenoma. Okay. Next one, look at the image, ultrasound image. That is a giveaway. What kind of lesion is it? Cystic lesion or solid lesion? What tells me that this is a cystic lesion or a solid lesion? Yes, guys. The lesion is jet black. What is jet black on ultrasound? Fluid. What else proves that this is cystic? Look at the area behind that lesion appearing white. Posterior acoustic enhancement, which tells you that this is a clear fluid. There is no hemorrhage there, no pus there. That means it is a simple cyst. Complex cyst, complicated cyst. Complicated cyst is what has debris present due to blood, due to pus. Complex cyst is what, like a malignant cyst, which has solid component, which has septations, right? That is a complex cyst. You are not seeing any of those here. So that is a simple cyst. Very good. Posterior enhancement is a cystic lesion. Breast cancer is a solid lesion. Okay, so the answer is simple cyst, like we had seen hepatic cyst. Next one, what sign is shown here? What is the sign that you are seeing here? This is called as Linguini sign, right? वो noodle spaghetti जैसा appearance, Linguini sign. So that is telling you that the capsule of the implant is intact. The inner membrane which has ruptured, this is intracapsular rupture. So intracapsular rupture is what shows Linguini sign. If it was extracapsular, the material, the silicon material goes out of that implant and you will see it going out of the implant, but this is contained within the capsule. So this is intracapsular rupture. Okay, the capsule is intact. Next one, which is this barium swallow, meal, follow through, or enema? Barium swallow means you will see esophagus, right? Hypopharynx, esophagus. So neck wala part aega, thorax wala part aega. So in which of these you are seeing the neck part? Image C. Okay. So barium swallow, one is C. One is C only in option B. So that is the answer there. Barium meal, the meal goes into the stomach. Stomach is your A. Okay. Follow through. Stomach se aage follow through karenge into the small intestine. So when you are seeing all these small bowel loops, it is the follow through. So 3 is D. Enema, that is through the rectum, right? So the colon, large bowel is what is seen here. These are the hostrations. So that is the barium enema. Okay. MCQ, getting good ranks, good scores in competitive exams like your NEET, PG, INICT, FMG. It's not just about who has a better knowledge. It's also about who can apply that knowledge better, who's smarter, to use all these smart tricks to answer the questions fast. Speed and accuracy, you have to work on both of these when you want to crack these exams. Okay, next one. Which of the following signs is not expected in this case? Look at this. What are you seeing? The air under diaphragm, the air under diaphragm. So what is the diagnosis here? This is pneumoperitoneum that you are seeing here. Cupola sign दिखता है? Central part of diaphragm के नीचे जब air accumulate होता है, that is cupola. Regular sign, the bowel wall which is seen very clear because of the air inside and air outside. Regular sign is seen. Regular striate is not seen. Where do you see regular striate, guys? Regular striate is seen in gallstone ileus, right? Surgery में पढ़ा होगा regular striate, gallstone ileus. फ्री गैस अंडर द डायफ्राम दिखता है, क्या नहीं दिखता है? चिलाडिटीज नहीं दिखता है. चिलाडिटीज इज pseudoneumoperitoneuम. Okay, pseudoneumoperitoneum. When you have the colonic loop coming in between the diaphragm and the liver, you have a colonic loop coming in. That is what is chiladites. Okay. Next one. Which of the following statement correctly differentiates between these images? So look at this one. What do you have? The two images. This is the bird beak appearance, distal esophagus, achalasia. This is the irregular surface, mid-esophagus, malignancy. So this is carcinoma and this is achalasia. Okay. So image 1 shows achalasia with a bird beak. Image 2 is carcinoma. This is correct. Image 1 is not carcinoma. Okay. Achalasia will always be in the lower esophageal sphincter, the bird beak. And carcinoma will have this irregular surface. Next one, look at this. What atresia? When you have the question on what atresia, basically you have to look at the number of bubbles. How many bubbles? 1, 2, 3. This is triple bubble. So triple bubble is jejunum. Pylorus stomach 1, then comes duodenum 2, then comes jejunum 3, and then comes ileum more than 3. There is going to be multiple. So this is triple bubble sign which is seen in jejunal atresia. Okay, triple bubble, jejunal atresia asked in recent exam. What is this one? Most likely diagnosis. Is it small bowel or large bowel obstruction? Look at this bowel which has a complete rings. So these are volvulae conniventus which are complete rings which are seen in small bowel obstruction. Large bowel obstruction will have hostrations which are incomplete. Okay, when you see the complete rings, this is volvulae conniventus. This is small bowel obstruction. Has been asked in one of the NEET PG exams. Okay, complete rings, small bowel. Next one, ये दिख रहा है आपको current jelly stools. That is a very important keyword for intussusception. What are you seeing in the ultrasound? There is this outer bowel, inner bowel. थोड़ा fat भी दिख रहा है, जो mesentery का fat भी गया है साथ में. Right, so that is the target sign, donut sign, which is seen in intussusception. Okay, that is intussusception, current jelly stools, target sign. Clear with everyone? Current jelly stools, very important, tells you this is intussusception. Right, electrolyte imbalances like potassium disturbances, post-surgery, paralytic ileus दिखता है. So in paralytic ileus, there is no mechanical obstruction. Okay, there is no mechanical obstruction there. Okay, next one. Match the following, identify the sequences. T2 weighted MRI, you know that T2 is World War II. Water white on T2. So in which one do you have water white out of these images? 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at these ventricles. The water, the CSF is white in second image. So that is T2. So 2 is D. 2 is D, is only in option A. So that is going to be your answer there. Right? Look at the first image. The white matter is white. The gray matter, the cortex is gray. So anatomy is being followed. Anatomy is your first year subject. So first T1. White matter white. Gray matter gray. That is your T1. Look at this one. The water is also black. The white matter is also black. All black is what sequence? All black is flare. Right? So this is flare. Look at this one. The outer skull is not well seen. The skull bone, the scalp. It's only the brain that you are seeing. This is DWI. Diffusion weighted imaging. Right? It is not showing the बाहर वाली दीवार नहीं दिखेगी. The skull and the scalp. Okay. So what is the most likely diagnosis based on the clinical presentation? Honestly, in this image, what you should have been given is this complete pelvis wala image should have been given to differentiate whether it is actually the bowel obstruction or it is the paralytic ileus. So see what will happen in paralytic ileus. You will also see, the large bowels also dilated along with the small bowel क्योंकि पूरा bowel आपका जा रहा है ileus में. ठीक है, यहाँ पे पर्टिकुलरली आपको सिर्फ स्मॉल बावल वो लोकलाइज्ड एरिया में सिर्फ स्मॉल बावल लूप्स ही डायलेटेड दिख रहे हैं. सो दैट्स व्हाई you will go with, मेरा स्क्रीन कहाँ गया, okay, you will go with small bowel obstruction. Now if you are getting confused कि यहाँ पे history of prior abdominal surgery है, so that basically tells you that abdominal surgery की वजह से the patient develops adhesions, and adhesions are a very common cause of causing bowel obstruction. So this is not like immediate post surgery कि you are thinking of paralytic ileus. और high pitched bowel sounds भी दिए हुए हैं. In ileus, basically the bowel sounds will also be absent. Obstruction की वजह से क्या होगा कि the bowel is contracting and forcing the contents to go ahead. तो उसमें bowel sounds भी बहुत high आएंगे. Ileus में क्या होगा कि the bowel is like paralyzed. Got it? This is done, and these MRI sequences are also done. Okay. Going to the next one. 55-year-old male with recent seizures advised to undergo MRI. In which of the following conditions would an MRI be preferred diagnostic tool? So basically इसमें से किसमें MRI नहीं करोगे? Pacemaker के साथ MRI नहीं करोगे. Aneurysm post clipping. So basically metal वाले में हम MRI नहीं करेंगे, है ना? So basically 2 और 4 में तो आप definitely MRI करोगे नहीं. तो 2 में भी नहीं. 2, 4, 2, 4. The only option that you are left with is option D. ठीक है. So the learning lesson here, particularly in this question, is pacemaker is a contraindication, clipping is a contraindication, cochlear implant is a contraindication, any metallic foreign body, right? MRI is contraindicated. X-ray is the first thing that we do. CT is the better localization में help करता है. Okay. Otherwise, for brain, MRI is generally a better investigation for detailed evaluation. What Doppler waveform is typically seen in lower limb DVT? See, when there is deep vein thrombosis, so the vein has a thrombus inside it. First of all, tell me that in DVT, what is the investigation that you do? USD, right? USD along with Doppler. What will you see on USD? If the thrombus is there, you might be able to see the thrombus there sitting inside the vein. What else do you see with the thrombosed vein? The vein is compressible or non-compressible? Yes. What is diagnostic of DVT? Compressible vein or non-compressible vein? See, normal vein, when you give the pressure with the probe, it gets compressed. ठीक है? But अगर उसके अंदर thrombus होगा तो वो compress नहीं होगी. Absolutely right. So it will be non-compressible vein. And if you look at the waveform, not in the thrombosed vein, right? Imagine that the IVC is thrombosed and you are looking at the iliac veins, the lower limb veins, and this is thrombosed. So what kind of waveform will you get in the veins here is the monophasic waveform, which is without any phasicity, right? It's going to be a flat waveform. There is no phasicity with respiration that you are seeing. Normally, the veins with respiration, inspiration, expiration, the waveform changes, right? The flow changes. But here it is going to be just flat flow without any change with respiration, right? So remember, monophasic waveform is what you have. Triphasic waveform is seen in the peripheral arteries, which have high resistance. The limb arteries, they show the triphasic waveform. Okay, forward flow, backward flow और फिर forward flow. ऐसा आता है triphasic waveform in normal peripheral arteries. Okay. Next one, the vessel marked. I mean, at least in the image that I've got, the vessel has not been marked, but you have a clue there. It supplies the lateral surface of the cerebral hemisphere. The lateral surface of the cerebral hemisphere is predominantly the MCA. The medial surface is the ACA, right? So based on this, you can think that they're talking about MCA. If I asked you to identify MCA in this MR angiogram, so the one which goes horizontal laterally, that is the MCA. The one which goes anterior is the ACA. Okay, this tortuous vessel, this is the internal carotid artery. These two vessels joining to form one vessel, this is vertebral arteries, two vertebral arteries joining to form the basilar artery, and the basilar artery giving this terminal artery, which is PCA, posterior cerebral artery. Okay, so that is how you identify the vessels on MR angiogram. Next one. According to AERB guidelines, maximum dose limit for occupational workers to whole body in a year is 30 millisievert. For general public, it is how much? 1 millisievert. Okay. For occupational worker in any particular year, it is 30 millisieverts. For the embryo, the fetus, it is how much? 1 millisievert. For the pregnant mother, it is how much? 2 millisievert. Okay, in the entire pregnancy. Next one, what type of contrast agent is it? What contrast agent is it? Iohexol. When you have the name of the iodinated contrast medium ending in ol, it is non-ionic. If it ends in ATE, 8, then it is ionic. Okay, so this is non-ionic, non-ionic, it is not ionic. Okay, so two options are out. Now, iohexol is non-ionic monomer because you have only one non-ionic dimer. Which is that one non-ionic dimer? Iodixanol. Non-ionic, and remember di, which is a dimer. Okay, that is the only non-ionic dimer, iodixanol. This is a non-ionic monomer, which is low osmolar, so comparatively safe, and it is very commonly used iodinated contrast medium. Okay, I'm not discussing the details of the iodinated contrast media classification, osmolality, that has been discussed in our videos. Okay, next one, which of the following is not a risk factor for CIN, contrast induced nephropathy? So any patient who already has a renal disease, more risk of contrast induced nephropathy. Like diabetes में nephropathy होता है, metformin, right? Again, diabetes or metformin खुद, अगर the serum creatinine is high, you know, we say that metformin should not be given. NSAIDs, we know that affect the kidney. Asthma has nothing to do with the kidney, right? So thinking logically, even if you do not know answer, think logically and mark the answer. Trust me, especially in exam like INICET, a lot of questions, you know, you will have to mark answers like this. You might not know the answer straight ahead, but logical thinking is what helps you getting to the answer. Asthma is something which is a risk factor for what contrast side effect? Contrast के बाद जो anaphylaxis हो सकता है, उसके लिए वो risk है, right? But not for contrast induced nephropathy. Okay. Next one. Which of the following would contraindicate using a barium study? Ulcerative colitis का patient है, malabsorption, colon carcinoma, TB या inflammatory bowel disease exacerbation. Again, think logically. It is IBD exacerbation. Barium is not to be used when there is something which is acute inflammatory condition. That time barium is not to be used. Barium is not to be used when there is perforation. Okay, another contraindication. So acute inflammatory conditions, barium is not to be used. perforation barium is not to be used. So exacerbation के time में barium नहीं करेंगे. इसीलिए when there is toxic megacolon also, you do not use barium. You do a plain X-ray to diagnose toxic megacolon. Okay, so acute inflammation में barium नहीं करते हैं. Which of the following is most common used photosensitive material in conventional X-ray film? So the conventional X-ray film that is there, it has an emulsion which is present, right? What is it made up of? Silver halide. The most common of that is silver bromide. Okay, just a factual question. Silver bromide is what is the emulsion in a X-ray film. Most common it is silver bromide. Next one, axial CT is there. Identify the chamber. So heart के chambers identify करना very important. The anterior most just behind the sternum is what chamber? Right ventricle. Right ventricle, anterior most. Posterior most, opposite of right ventricle, right का उल्टा left, ventricle का उल्टा atrium. So posterior most, when you are coming from behind, that is the left atrium. Okay. So this is the left atrium, this is right ventricle, the midline of the heart will come here. So these to the left, your left as the patient, right? So this is right ventricle, this is going to be right atrium, this is left atrium which you are seeing here. So this one here is going to be left ventricle. Okay, that is going to be left ventricle. Is that clear with everyone? Right, so that is going to be left ventricle. Can you tell me what is this one here? What is this structure? Let me erase this. Okay, and now tell me what is this structure. Let me see, how many of you can think logically, even if you don't know, like पता नहीं हमने ये कभी पढ़ा नहीं है, but think logically and tell me कि कहाँ से related है और ये क्या हो सकता है. Which is related to the left atrium. What goes into the left atrium is the pulmonary vein. Okay, so that is the pulmonary vein, not the pulmonary artery. Okay, that's a pulmonary vein. Okay, coming to the last question. What is the fundamental technological innovation behind spiral CT? Spiral CT is something, which is very fast, and the gantry, right, that can rotate continuously. That has become possible with spiral CT. Previously, it was axial CT. The gantry takes one rotation, it comes back, and then the table moves, and then the gantry moves. So it used to take a lot of time. Spiral CT is continuous movement, so it is very fast. So what has made this continuous movement possible is the slip ring technology. Okay, the slip ring technology is something which enables the continuous movement of the gantry without the cables attached getting entangled. Okay, so remember it is slip ring technology which is used in spiral CT, which has enabled this fast spiral CT scanning. Okay. So that completes our 50 questions discussion for today. Have a good day and keep studying, keep revising, and keep winning. Thank you.